Hey,
I've
Dad
always,
worked for Nestle. Dad worked for Nestle, mate. The 3 Kit Kats a day didn't really work too well.
This is potentially the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life. And that's saying something, because there's been some stupid stuff in the history.
For me, what was the most rewarding, just learning, taking stuff out of them, and also being given this platform to be able to stand up and represent, people of my kind.
The only way really to kick poverty in the butt at all is through education, and I probably didn't realise until I went there.
They should back you. It's water cooler weekly. I mean, it's a big deal.
Normally I introduce people, but I've started something this week where I'm just getting people to introduce themselves. Okay. So, Thomas Flynn, introduce yourself.
an introspective, passionate, learning-obsessed educator.
Yeah.
And I don't like to pigeonhole myself because obviously I was PT for several years, but that's really expanded beyond health and fitness or physical fitness into mental health. Basically, all of the tools that I think every person should possess around building our best possible physical health, mental health, a more fulfilling life. What does that actually look like? Because we don't know this stuff.
Yeah.
How do you actually go about managing the day-to-day of mental and physical health?
What an answer.
Yeah.
If you ask me how do I introduce myself, I'd say I'm just a humble farmer. Yeah. That is an absolutely incredible way.
I was thinking about it in the car on the way over here. I was like, how do I explain what I do? And then you throw in the identity thing, which is a whole other topic.
Yeah, no, well, you did an incredible job of introducing yourself. That was great. So following up on that, why was this line of work, the sort of thing that you wanted to get yourself into? Like, I work in finance, as I discussed before. Yeah, I don't tie myself to finance. I like to make money. So that's why I do that. Like, why do you do what you do?
Passion.
Yeah.
If you've had to sum it up in one word, I studied engineering at uni. I did a Bachelor of Science Mech-Eng major, and the whole time that I should have been studying a lot harder for uni, I was obsessively learning about the gym and muscle building and fitness and nutrition and all that kind of stuff. And so when I finished my undergrad, I went back to start my master's degree, and I went first day in and I went, what am I doing here? I'm not passionate about this one bit. I don't really care about the melting point of these metals or whatever. Why am I here?
Yeah.
So after a couple of weeks, I just went, no, this is not me. Dropped out of uni. And obviously that was the first time the next 6 months or whatever was the first time I'd ever experienced anything that would resemble poor mental health, because you go from having your life kind of planned out and direction and I'm going to be an engineer and this kind of stuff to now it's like, what the hell am I going to do? Who am I?
Yeah.
Obviously that just created a period of like, what am I doing? But all the while the fitness stuff was always kind of my escape. And, it was, I talk a lot about, obviously, in my social media about the mental benefits of having progressive training, progressive exercise, progressive fitness as being this thing that is in your control, that you have influence over, to have, you feel like you had a win today. You go into the gym, you hit a PB, or even just the fact that you went is a win.
They're my wins at the gym.
Yeah, that's it. Sometimes it is, and that's fine, right? Like a lot of the time, the win can just be, I got in there.
Yeah.
I moved today. Like, that's fine.
I still don't really move that much in the gym. I'm just an empty carcass, really.
That's how it feels some days, for sure. And depending how you're training, sometimes it is just you're on a machine and then you're just sitting for a couple of minutes.
Like, what am I doing?
Some days it's just not there. But even then, I think the mental win that day still comes from I got off the couch, I got out the door, and I went and did something like that. Yeah. It's just keeping that momentum going.
100%. You sort of touched on there the sort of content that you do. So, which is why I asked you to come on, because you're one of my favorite Instagram accounts to follow. The stuff that you post there, you put such a ton of effort into it, and it has such substance, and it's not just, dumb Photoshop photos like I do on my Instagram account. So
I enjoy those though.
Thank you. It's nice to hear that people enjoy them, but
we need a variety of.
I know. Sometimes I go through stages where I should make my account private, like with some of the like prospective employers or guests, will be like, oh, let's see what this guy's about, and they're like, "Did you look at that? That's an absolute tie fire of a photo." But anyway, you know what you do on Instagram. It's not just, you know, I guess you call yourself a PT, but it's not just.
Not so much. As we were talking about before, right? It's once upon a time it was I'm a PT.
Yeah.
And probably pigeonholed myself too much with fitness being like everything.
Yeah.
For a couple of years there, and went too deep on that, and then that definitely set myself up for trouble, because then when PT wasn't going well, and when I was starting to realise that I didn't even really want to not want to do it anymore, but I couldn't see myself just doing one-to-one PT work forever.
Yeah.
And I was also, because of how, and that's a whole other conversation, but like how stressed and anxious I was getting burnt out, like my own training was suffering. And so all of a sudden it was like, who the hell am I without fitness? Like if I don't want to do that for work, and I'm not even that interested in the training right now because I'm kind of just burnt out on it, who am I without it?
Yeah.
So that was, I'm cautious of defining myself as PT anymore. And that's where I sort of like the term educator, because it's just, I'm obsessed with learning, and I'm just sharing what's been useful for me and what I think will be useful for others.
Well, that's it. I mean, all right, let's call you an educator rather than a PT, but most of those people in that gym, fitness, education space, the content can be a bit, can lack substance at times, especially to people like me who are more concerned about mental health and physical health. And that's so much of what, you know, you provide. It's so much around mental health and mindset. And, you know, I really do appreciate, you know, the effort that you put in, as well as the actual material. So
I appreciate that.
I'm absolutely thrilled to have you on here. So we're going to go through a ton of the stuff, and, you know, sort of what makes your mind tick the way it does, and, you know, why you do it. So, I guess, you know, you mentioned pigeonholing a couple of times. I guess with health and fitness, it's such a industry, or I guess a profession, where you can take so many different avenues. But like, why was it important for you to sort of head down this particular path?
Simply put, identifying a gap, really. Like, just I felt that there just is not enough education, period, really.
Yeah.
But also that, you know, there are 1,000,001 PTs who are teaching you what calories are and what macros are and what progressive overload is, and like how to lift weights.
Yeah.
And I like that stuff, and I try to share that too. But I eventually found that like I was getting so bored on that stuff, because, you know, once you kind of know it, you're just like, okay, yeah, cool. And now it's like, am I just going to talk about calories and macros and like hip thrusts for the rest of time? Like
hopefully not hip thrusts.
I just went like, for the most part, like the stuff I'm sharing it's pretty much just me exploring what I find interesting, solving my own problems, working through that, taking in all the stuff that's fascinating to me, kind of collating it. We were talking about creativity before. We can kind of get into how important I've discovered it is to have creativity in terms of the quality of our headspace, like something that lets you feel creative.
Yeah.
Because that's what the stuff that I share has kind of allowed me to do, is starting to take all this stuff I'm learning about physical fitness and mindset and mental health and purpose and passion and values and whatever, and kind of start to just connect the dots in my head. Yeah. And then that's effectively my form of being creative. Like, it's not necessarily brand new ideas, but it's me connecting the dots in my original way, kind of my form of creativity. And I've found that that's been super powerful.
Talk about, so finding what works for you won't necessarily work for, say, me or my next door neighbor or whatever. But talk about, you know, the conversations that you've had with people who, you know, are engaging with the, you know, the content and the information, and talk about how you can, you know, you've been able to adapt and help them, you know, connect some of those dots for themselves.
For sure. Yeah. It's one of those things where, oftentimes it's just me being vulnerable. That's the most important thing. Like, just the fact that someone is actually sharing what they've gone through, whether it was stress or anxiety, because, you know, not a lot, it's happening more and more these days, but not a lot of people are super open about that stuff. And that always seems to be the thing that's most helpful, is when I'm just sharing my story and then I'm talking about what's been useful or what I've learned through that, mindfulness and presence seems to be the recurring thing that engages, that catches people.
Yeah.
Like, just because, as we spoke about before, I think stress, anxiety, overwhelm seems to be probably one of the main challenges that so many people are struggling with. And it certainly was the case for me. And so whenever I talk about anything to do with being more present and just finding more joy in the present moment, that seems to catch people's attention.
Yeah.
And resonate with people really well.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably been the main one that's kind of stood out. But where would you go with that? I share that much stuff, and I got that much stuff going on in my head that it's almost tricky to keep track of which stuff has kind of hit home with people, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, it's universal stuff that I'm learning, and I'm going, why was I not taught this like more explicitly throughout my life? Why was I not taught the immense power of gratitude for everything? Like, because, gratitude thrown around a lot these days, especially if you've spent some time listening to Mojo Crow and all those kind of guys. It's great stuff. Resilience Project as well.
Yeah.
But the thing that gets neglected is half the equation is being able to actually find gratitude for the bad stuff, for the challenges, for the negative times, for the really tricky periods.
Yeah.
Because if you can find a way to reframe that and be grateful that it happened because you learnt something really cool from it, or it taught you something more about yourself, or perhaps you spent a couple of years in a job that you hated to figure out what's more meaningful to you.
That's just my whole working career, mate.
It's a lot of people. A lot of people just endure a job that they hate.
Yeah.
And it's like, if we could, just stop and be a little bit more mindful and stop and ask ourselves better questions of, what would actually be meaningful to me? What lights me up? Or then we can start to reframe that experience of a job you didn't like as just being one step closer towards what you want to do, what you do want to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sort of just course correcting.
How hard has that been for you to go through that yourself? I know you spoke about, before we did this, about, personal experiences, and you're an open book to that. Like those, going through those sort of things, like I guess character building moments, as you could call them, like they're hard to go through.
Oh,
like it's
in the moment, it's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah,
or it can be. It can be.
It can be absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
There are some where you can actually acknowledge halfway through, you go, fuck, this is hard.
Yeah.
But I ultimately, I know this could be character defining, or this is only going to benefit me. Like, how hard has that been for you personally to, work through? And then I guess sort of, as you try and help people, understand those moments themselves, like, you can't do that unless you're coming from a position of strength, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. It's, I suppose it's kind of like a strength or something that helps me, but is also one of my greatest challenges is how introspective I am, like how much I think about my thinking and what I'm doing, because I probably end up overthinking a lot of things.
Yeah.
As a result, it means that anytime I'm going through something challenging or that's anything less than, even when it is amazing, anything I'm going through, I'm constantly kind of thinking about what's going on with that. So I suppose that's kind of where, or how I've kind of worked through that. PT, we can talk about like personal experiences with poor mental health. Like PT, for a host of reasons, like led to like the toughest 2-ish years of my life. Like I'd never experienced really anything you'd call like proper, like legit mental health struggles until, let's say, late 20 or early 2019 kind of thing. And so probably part of, from that has kind of shaped so much of what I'm passionate about, that I think all our lives, or at least this was the impression I had, that you kind of get taught this idea that mental health, anxiety or depression or anything like that is just this like brain malfunction that some people are just unfortunate to have and everyone else is fine, rather than it being something that can come along like based on circumstances, based on just like the conditions of your life, rather than it being just this thing that I have anxiety because XYZ happened in my childhood or whatever, that can be a factor. I'm not saying it's not. The point is that when we're sort of taught that anxiety, depression or anything mental healthy are kind of the problem rather than the symptom of the problem.
Yeah.
And for me, they were the symptom of the problem. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think recognising that, as I said, being so introspective probably helped was working out that, hang on, like these aren't the problem. These are telling me something's not quite right.
Yeah.
With this situation with PT and stuff. You know what I mean?
And what was it specifically about the PT? Like, were there specific things where you're like,
It wasn't.
were there specific things about PTs, whether that's the way the job goes or the way the role is, you know, traditionally, that you sort of always maybe in the back of your head go like, fuck, I hate this. And then obviously it starts coming to the forefront where you're like, you know, I don't just hate this. This is actually a problem for me going about my day.
Yeah. It's tricky because PT was all at once super rewarding and fulfilling to me. And it wasn't necessarily the actual work. Like the actual work with clients, for the most part, like 99% of the time, was actually fantastic. It was amazing, brilliant.
Yeah. Not
necessarily the issue. The issue was more around, as I say, all of my problems were self-inflicted, which is why I'm really, really big on kind of like the phrase I kind of thought of earlier is like, if you've got education and then you've got ownership, you're empowered. So it's like we take ownership of our situation and our headspace, and then we have the education to know what the hell to do to actually get ourselves out of a tricky spot. Now we're empowered to do something about it. But you don't have the empowerment until you take responsibility of it. So it was like, I like all of my problems were self-inflicted, really. And it was around a host of things. Perfectionism, like I was way too much of a perfectionist about writing a client's program. It would take like a 30-minute task would take me like 3 hours. And then so all of a sudden you're getting through the day, it's like, I can't get anything done here.
Yeah.
And so now I'm in this position where it's like, I'm not really getting anywhere with work because it takes me so long to get anything done. But also it took me a long time to kind of truly acknowledge to myself that I had this internal like block that was just like, need more clients to, you know, like build my business and make more money and have more impact, but make this a sustainable career, but don't actually want clients.
Yeah.
Like don't want it because I like, as I said, I'm a pretty introverted guy. I don't really want to work with like 20 or 30 people in a one-to-one manner all throughout the week. Like that's just exhausting to me.
Yeah.
And so it was this thing of like, it was like trying to rev an engine with the car in neutral or like the foot on the brake. You know what I mean? It's like I'm trying to accelerate. I need clients. I need to work really hard, but I don't actually want it. So I'm just going to like procrastinate around the whole thing.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say, it sounds like a really tough, like it's almost like I want a social life, but I don't want to see people. Like it's almost like, like I want to go out, but I also don't want to leave my couch.
That's
like
pretty much it.
It sounds like
exactly right.
It sounds like almost a nightmare.
That's it, man. So a lot of as I said, self-inflicted, like a lot of the anxiety was just like creating this pressure on myself where it's like, I really need to be doing all of these things because building a business is tricky. It's meant to be. Well, it's not meant to be, but it is.
100% it is, yeah.
And it was like, and I was okay with that. Like I loved the idea of the challenge, but it was this thing of like, I'm constantly avoiding, procrastinating all these things I should be doing because I don't actually really want to build my business.
Yeah.
Because part of me knows that that's not really what I want to be doing long term.
Yeah.
So it's this resistance to the fact that I need to do this. It's not financially sustainable to not have many clients because I'm not actually wanting more clients. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't so much the clients I had, they were great. It was, the guys I worked with were amazing. And a lot of them were like mates and some family and stuff. And they were like the thing that kept me going. Yeah. But it was the stuff outside of the PT sessions that was the most draining, I suppose.
Yeah. And I feel like so many people have that when it comes to, say, running their own business, or even if you're not running your own business, say you're working on commission. Yeah. Like if you ain't working, you ain't getting paid.
Exactly.
And and like the whole anxiety around that is it makes it so much harder for someone to disengage from work because they're like, if I take a month off or if I have like a poor month at work, like, I'm not going out for breakfast having smashed ever. Like I'm meagering, this for breakfast every night. But some people thrive. Some people thrive under that kind of like back against the wall kind of a thing. But it's like, I think you have to understand what works for you. Like might not work for me.
Yeah. And that's like, I sort of spoke about passion and this is like what you just spoke about is exactly why I became so fascinated with like motivation, like what drives us to actually do something or not do it. And then also around beliefs and stuff like maybe why am I not doing this? Why do I, why am I getting my own way kind of thing?
Yeah.
And so it was this sense of like I effectively like burnt myself out, despite the fact that I didn't have like a ton of like, how do I describe it? Like I burnt myself out just thinking about work. The fact that it was on my mind 24/7
without actually.
But half the time I was just like
thinking about
like at my laptop, but like on my phone or mucking around or something.
Yeah.
And so it's like I'd be in front of the laptop, like work on my mind for 15 hours a day, but I'm not actually getting 15 hours of work done.
Yeah, you're not actually. You don't like. You look on paper, you're like, I've actually done nothing, but it feels like
exactly right.
You're like, fuck, what a long week of work.
Yeah, yeah, and as you said before about it's on your mind. Like when you feel like you're kind of drowning with business, you don't feel like you can relax on Sunday, because on Sunday you're thinking like, oh, I really should get on top of all this stuff I need to do, because otherwise I'm screwed for the coming week.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, so all of a sudden it's just on your mind around the clock. Find that every time you're putting in hours and hours of work, but you're kind of just avoiding it because there's something about this I don't actually even want. All of a sudden it's like you just revving the engine. Eventually you just go like, I don't care anymore. Or not like I don't care, but just like I'm just like
check out.
I'm just not going to do it. So then it's like self-worth is plummeting, because it's like I don't feel like I have it in me to do this challenging thing.
Yeah.
I don't even feel like trying anymore. Do you know what I mean? And so that's when, or that's where it started to at times become like sort of like burnout, and then probably like low-grade depression, kind of like melancholy. Let's call it low-grade depression for like periods of time. Yeah. Because I've just gone from like I'm revving the engine 24/7, I'm getting nowhere, and now I just don't even care anymore. Yeah. I'm just like I don't care. It's like I'm out of dopamine. I'm just done. You know what I mean? Because I'd always been, as I said, I'd been running on passion, which was probably my strength, but also my what's the word? Like my Achilles heel. Do you know what I mean? Like I was running on passion. So when there wasn't passion there, I felt like there wasn't something else to keep me going.
Yeah. I know exactly how you feel. Like that was me in hockey. Yeah. Like ever since I started watching hockey, like in high school, my whole identity had been wrapped up in hockey. Yeah. And to be fair, it still is a lot. A lot of my life is hockey, but I just was driven by this this thought of I cannot be happy unless I'm working in hockey in some way, which I'm not going to say is like was wrong at the time or whatever, but I got a huge reality check, which is more of like a sledgehammer to the face when I went to Canada and started working as a scout, and realizing like what it actually involved to work in hockey at the base level, where the money sucked. Yeah. It was -30 outside, and I still had to go to a game an hour away from my house via public transit on a Wednesday night. That sucked. And, I got, I reckon, 2 months into a season where I was like, this is not for me. Yeah. And when you are 28 and it's all you've been thinking about for like the last 14 or 15 years,
all of a sudden your world comes crashing down.
Yeah. To be fair, it did. Like it literally did. Like that was a really, really hard realization to get to. And like, even now where like I still love watching hockey, but like there were days where I was watching 6 or 7 games a day. Like I would have to go out, watch 2 games live, and then I would have to come back and watch another couple. Like it was unsustainable. And it got to the point where I'm like, I fucking hate hockey. Yeah. And I never wanted it to be like that. And that was like the biggest thing where I was like, if I hate this, like, then I've just wasted so much of my time. Yeah, that's like just being like invested in it. And that was tough to handle.
And it's hard. It's really painful when this thing that once brought you so much joy, all of a sudden you're kind of like resenting it. Yeah. I mean, that is really, it feels like a big rock or a big pillar that's been kind of pulled out from under you.
Yeah. I was going to say this must be how Carlton fans feel, but I don't think that Carlton have ever had that, like, fans have had that, like, love. No, maybe not. It's always just been that, it's always just been shit.
It's just been the torture.
It's just been torture since. Let's talk about the, sort of, I don't want to say coming out the other side, but like, what was it that sort of made you click in your mind to go like, all right, I need to take this in a different path. I need to go down a different road. And to sort of start really aligning yourself with this stuff in the same kind of field.
Yep.
that really, you know, sort of, you know, you're passionate about, and that doesn't make you, you know, on a Sunday night go, fuck, I'm working tomorrow.
Yeah. It was probably a gradual process because, as I say, I was a PT from early 2018 to effectively Christmas just gone. And 2019, let's say, probably like late 2019 was when I just broke. And I was just like, I need help. Went and saw a psych. Fantastic. Like, I can't recommend that highly enough to people who are struggling, and when we can talk about that if you like, about like what that process is like and stuff. But that was so powerful for me. And because the thing she taught me more than anything else, we're kind of getting tangentially, but I think this was really valuable. The thing she taught me was empathy for self.
Yeah.
To stop being so hard on myself. Like, I had these ridiculously high standards for myself that I could not possibly meet in terms of like...
I'm the same.
In terms of, as I said, for example, a program for a client. Like, I'd spend 3 hours on it. The client doesn't even know. Like, as in, they wouldn't know if it's a good or a bad one. They wouldn't know if it took 10 minutes.
I was going to say, I wonder how many PTs just like kind of just go like have a template on their laptop and just go, there you go.
Yeah, that's it. And it's like, but even then, like, I knew that if I want to be sustainable with this, I need to have like templates that I build off and stuff. But every time I sat down to do templates, I was like so resistant to it. And I figured out eventually that it's like I was resistant to anything that was going to allow me to build the business. Like, anything that would actually be like a step forward in like a system that makes this more efficient so I can bring on more clients and like make this work, I would just be resistant to it. And it took me a long time to figure out it was like my internal knowing saying, I don't want that, so don't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you know, late 2019, saw a psych, but as I stuck with PT for another 12 months, but that taught me obviously so much about being kind to myself. But I mean, I'd been obsessed with, you know, all things mental health, motivation, behavior, why we do things, all this kind of stuff for probably since maybe 2018.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a gradual thing, but it was probably not until late last year and sort of hit my like probably first legitimate period of, like, yeah, I guess I'd call it depression. It was low grade. I don't want to call it like full blown because I don't want to, use the term loosely, but it definitely was that for a couple of weeks to a month where it was just like, I'm not interested in any of the things that I normally care about. I'm crying like every single day just about like the most, not about nothing, but like just so easily emotional, and just kind of losing interest in everything.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it. Let's get candid, but I think that's what's valuable for the listener. I won't say it ever got to the point where I wanted to end things, but it got to a point where I could empathise with people who want to end things.
Yeah.
In the sense that it had been shit enough for probably like on and off for several months without me yet being able to feel like, it's when you start losing that kind of light at the end of the tunnel of like things can get better. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, as long as you know that, okay, like things suck now, but I know that they're going to get better. You can endure anything. Mm-hmm. But it's when you start going like, you kind of go like, if I was to feel like this every day for the next 50 years, I want nothing to do with that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's where I was at for a period of time, at times through like mid kind of last year.
Yeah.
And that was when I started to go like, okay, hang on, like something's not right about this. And I've been letting this fuck with my mental health for a good like 18 months now. Something's got to change here.
Yeah.
And all the while, you know, I'd obviously always been interested in the education and the learning and you know, I'd been sharing educational stuff since kind of day one. And it was like, in terms of, you said, like coming out the other side, it was probably just starting to kind of get this glimmer of hope that like, or this glimmer of an idea that I could go down more of an educational route, basically, and still be, you know, teaching things that I'm passionate about, things that have been helpful for me, the things that actually helped me pull myself out of that period with the fitness stuff and whatnot, and then help others with it. Because it's like, I know that I was like, I know that this is my, you know, I'm in the right general area, like health, fitness, wellness, this kind of stuff, education. I know I'm kind of in like the right ballpark. So I was like, I know there's something here that
Yeah, I feel like and I'm not gonna pretend to be like I dropped out of high school. Like I did a Mickey Mouse degree at Victoria University, so I'm not going to try and proclaim like I'm a educator or, you know, someone who has a wealth of knowledge, but it doesn't come across that, you know, you're speaking from a higher place. Like, if it's coming from experience, like, sure, that experience and what tools you use to get out of that experience is not going to help everyone, but sometimes that's a starting point. And then a person goes, well, that premise there, that actually might work, but I might tweak it this way and it works for me. And like, I mean, fuck, I'm no different to anyone else. Like, last year, like, I live alone. Like, you're currently in my house / studio. It's not glamorous. Like, and you know, there were parts during lockdown where I remember one weekend, I didn't leave bed. Like, I left to use the toilet and eat, and like, that was it. I had no TV in my room. I had no will to really do anything, speak to anyone, and it was fucking difficult. Like, there for a period of time during that year and during that lockdown, and so many people would have been experiencing this. Like, there just wasn't that, like, that light or whatever.
Yeah, when it kind of kept getting dragged out and stuff. I know what you mean, yeah.
And I feel like it is. This is not, obviously, like, a lot of people gone through it, but there is still that stigma of, like, you know, people, you know, it's ended now. People don't want to. They want to just put it away. But I feel like it is good to broach this subject, and that's why. That's another reason why, you know, this sort of a chat is, you know, so good, and hopefully it helps, you know, some people. Is that this shit isn't easy to talk about,
no, it's not.
But it's, you know what, like, someone can just listen and send me or send you a message and say, hey, really enjoyed that. That really helped me. And that's the only person they could tell.
It needs to be.
And that's all it needs to be. And so it's like, on one hand, it's, you know, it's awful to hear that, you know, you sort of experience that, which a lot of people have, but it's great to see.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I should just say that you mentioned that it's hard to talk about this stuff. It's not for me. I know that sounds weird, but I'm so...
Some people are like that.
I'm so happy and open to, like, literally talk about anything, because I think that, you know, obviously the hardest thing when you're struggling with mental health in any way, like highly anxious or really battling with, you know, kind of low mood or anything resembling depression, as much as it's irrational, like it's this feeling of isolation. You know? It's that feeling of like that that you're kind of alone in what you're experiencing, even when you got people around you and stuff. Because I think the vicious irony of it is that when you're going through that, the number one thing you need is to lean on other people, is social connection.
Yeah.
But you also want to withdraw. Well, that was my experience, but I think a lot of people find that. Do you ever get that? Like, you just
100%.
All at once, I want interaction, and I just want to be left alone.
If you met my mates, you'd understand why I feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I enjoy the social, like, the way I describe myself is like, I live alone because I love my own space and whatnot, but like, I love going out, you know, beers, whatnot, 1,000, you know, but there's always a part of the night where I'm like, I can't wait to go home.
Yeah.
You know, order a kebab, whatever. But it's like, it's just me. Like, and I absolutely love that. Like, I love the just the freeness of, you know, living alone. But I also acknowledge that it was a problem during a time where all social, you know, interaction was cut off, because I'm not the sort of person who, very rarely will I be the sort of person who will seek out, you know, social, like, activity. Like, if something's happening, oh yeah, sure, I'll go. But like, I'm not organising the party.
Yeah, I get
so.
Yeah.
It's a fine balance, which obviously, you know, didn't work, but it's working now.
For sure, yeah, and that was probably indicative of where I was at, because I often, not that I'm always the organizer of the thing, but like, it's probably this internal battle I face sometimes and PT kind of ties in with this a little bit as far as like part of me is super introverted and wants to just be left alone. But then there's like this other part of me that kind of wrestles with it because I'm actually very extroverted. And, you know, like I think typically they say that like introverts are more fatigued by social interaction.
Yeah.
Extroverts are more energized on average. It depends on the person. But like I sort of find that as much as I love my time alone in my space, I'm not necessarily fatigued by interaction. I'm kind of energized by it, depending on the person, really.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this battle of like part of me always wants to just default to like, no, don't go see anyone. But then this other part of me is like, no, actually, I really like socializing. What are you doing? Like,
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like when you're doing it, you're like, and it is so weird that like people can be like that. There's just like a moment where you just sort of shut down. I guess like part of that is, you know, maybe you're tired or whatever, or hungry, or there's always like other factors. But there is like that moment where you just like, you're like, yep, I've had enough.
Do you run out of batteries? Does it feel like that to you?
Mate, I go on half charge anyway. Yeah.
You're just conserving, right?
Yeah. No, I do. Like, there'll be people listening to this who will know me in a social situation and go like, well, like I've seen you like at, you know, who's there till the very end.
Yeah.
But you know, most nights are the way I like look at it is like I don't always hit full cylinder. Like the engine revs a little while and then I just sort of pack it up. But there are times where like, you know, I'll be out till God knows when, but most of the time I just hit a wall and I'm just like I'm done pretending. I'm shut up shop.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't really run out of batteries for the night and all that much. But what I find, and I identified this with a mate of mine, his girlfriend is very much, not very much an introvert, but her and I have these very similar kind of introverted tendencies. And I can vividly picture this day where we all went to the tennis Australia Day last year. And we're all kind of hanging out in a group like all day, having a great time, whatever. And then I remember I just hit a point after we'd been together for like 5 hours where I was like, I just need to like kind of go inside my head and just not talk to anyone for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And just
perfect because you're not allowed to talk at the tennis.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, we were at the gig. You know, they have like
the beer garden.
But we're all sort of standing around chatting and drinking and stuff. And and I remember just being like, no, I'm just like my social batteries are done. I just need to recharge the next half hour. And I look over at her and I could 100% tell from 5 meters away that she's doing the same thing. She's just like switched off the social batteries and I'm just going to recharge the next 20 minutes. And I honestly just do that, and it's like all conversation is just drowned out. Nothing. Yeah. But then I'm good. I'm back. I'll come back, and I'm good. I'm like happy to engage with everyone, and it's sweet.
That's usually just me. I'm generally switched off most of the time. Conversations are going on. I'm just like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
Let's talk about tools. You know, things that as you've come through the other side of what you were going through, and sort of really starting to lock in and find things that work. What works for you, or what have you found in like conversations you've had with other people in this space that, you know, work for them or they've found work for clients and whatnot?
So I suppose if we go even way back to like 2019, and I was kind of like, I was struggling, and I knew that it was going to be a while before I could kind of, get things to a place I was really happy with work or career or that kind of thing. So I kind of became obsessed with like, what are the tools available to me to get through the really tricky periods and feel like what's in your influence to like, you know, boost your mood, but like to feel like you finish the day with a win or to like, like to feel like you've done something positive. So it was like Resilience Project, I think we spoke about them, but you know, their work's fantastic. Got given their book, Christmas 2019. He talks about gratitude journaling. Like, bam, done. I've done that close to every day for like 2 years now.
So for those who don't know what that is?
15, 18 months. So the Resilience Project, run mainly by a guy named Hugh Van Cuylenberg. He started out doing like workshops presenting to schools, like kids in primary schools, kind of teaching them basically like general wellness or well-being or mental health management strategies. And their three main principles are gratitude, empathy, mindfulness. So finding more that you can be grateful for in the day, mindfulness as far as being more present. You spoke about senses before, but you know, going out for a walk and because people think mindfulness and they immediately go to like meditation, sitting quietly for 20 minutes, which is fantastic, can be great, but mindfulness can be something we can do all the time. But, you know, the example he uses is like you're out for a walk and you're just trying to take, you know, what can I see? Like how many, for me, it's like how many different shades of trees can I see? You know, it's like green, purple, yellow, different shade of green. You're taking in all the different things you can see. You can take in what you can hear, what you can smell, touch, whatever. And it's like you're using your senses to be more present. Plus movement is kind of a sense as well.
Yeah.
So that's like your mindfulness, and then empathy is their other one, which is like how can I, you know, put myself in someone else's shoes? How can I do something nice for someone else? Which was a powerful one for me. It was going like if I'm going through a really rough period here, I feel like I'm getting through the day and I'm not really having a win. Don't feel like I'm getting anywhere with work or anything, and I'm losing interest in my fitness and that kind of stuff. But what could I do right now that would be nice for someone else? And it might just be like, you know, messaging a mate who I know is also having a bit of a rough time and just say, hey mate, I want to see how you're doing.
Yeah. Like
sometimes that's all it needs to be. It just needs to be having a mate message you and check in on you, and that in and of itself can like get you going. So, because the really cool thing about that is that when we do something nice for someone else, we get our own little boost of oxytocin and all the good brain stuff. That is basically our brain like rewarding us for being part of the tribe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like contributing to others. So it's like that's a tool that's in your kind of tool belt of no matter what is going on in life, no matter how, you know, sort of much you feel like your own day hasn't gone too well, you could do something nice for someone else, and you get your own little like.
It's so easy to do as well.
Yeah, and it's so easy to do. Like it's all it has to be is, you know, check in on a mate, send them a message, say, hey, I really valued that, you know, that Instagram post you put up about that thing. Thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And as we spoke about, you know, sometimes all it takes is one person saying they valued it to like keep you going.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah. So any other tools or anything specifically that?
As I said, the gratitude journal is insanely powerful, and you kind of need to persist with it, like for a couple of weeks. And what it does is it actually retrains your brain to find more stuff that you're grateful for. So think about like if you were to, let's say you bought a new car, like a black Toyota Yaris.
Yeah.
You start seeing black Toyota Yaris's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
That's because your brain has sort of like decided this thing's important, so I notice it more. So I notice it more in my environment. So the more that you practice being grateful for stuff, you get to the end of the day and you list, like I will list everything. I will list like every single thing that happened in that day, and like think about why I'm like what I enjoyed about that or what I'm grateful for from that.
Yeah.
As we spoke about earlier, even the challenging stuff, I'm like, what can I learn from this? How is this an opportunity for me to grow as a person? So I get to be grateful for it. And the more you do that, now all of a sudden I just, all the time, everywhere I go, I'm noticing stuff that I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
Like I just, I didn't mention, but kind of relative to gratitude and mindfulness, I became obsessed with like all things weather. Like I just love clouds, I love sunsets, I love trees, I love rain, I love wind, I love storms, I love like anything to do with the weather. I'm just like grass. It's like I literally just look outside and it's like mood boost. Awesome.
What was it about the weather specifically?
It brings you really present, and it's like being able to find more beauty in the world or in the day. It's just like no matter how much you feel like you didn't have a win today, or like life was just stressed today, because that was the thing, is that for a long period of time it just felt like I wasn't. It was the kind of like revving the engine with the handbrake on. Do you know what I mean? It was just feeling like I'm just like not getting anywhere with anything.
Yeah, right.
So, and not really feeling like I'm having much of like a win here, so to speak. But like being able to find gratitude for like clouds was just like, well, that's always there. And I know that sounds silly, but I like love them. Like and anything to do. That's why this time of year, like I'm driving down the street and every tree that's like red or yellow, whatever, I'm like, oh, love that tree, love that tree, love that tree. Like, how good. And then I become grateful for the fact that I have the capacity to enjoy that so much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm glad that that's something I can feel. So there's like double gratitude. And it makes you mindful as well, because you're just like in that present moment.
I have a friend of mine who loves weather more than anyone. Like I don't get me wrong, I don't care. Like if it's raining, sunny, doesn't really occupy my mind.
See, I'm the opposite, where I just like it no matter what.
Yeah.
Piss and rain, I'm like, nice.
But like I will get a Snapchat of her or a text message saying, how beautiful is it outside? And I'm like, it looks okay.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, like how some people are just like, I feel like some people get so like, oh, it's going to rain tomorrow, and like that automatic dread. But I don't know if anyone's like, fuck yeah, it's going to rain tomorrow.
I'm that guy.
You're like, fuck yeah, it's going to rain.
I've got a mate who's also like I love storms and stuff. And I'll message and be like, man, have you seen there's some dark clouds over there? Like it's about to rain.
Yeah.
Friends, like lightning storm. I'm in heaven.
You're like Diamond Valley. You're like the Diamond Valley's weatherman.
I think he's the weatherman. I just appreciate it no matter what's going on.
Yeah.
It's like grass, awesome.
Yeah.
Clouds, wind, rain, sun, whatever. Like, so just being able to find the little wins in the day with stuff like that. You mentioned, or relative to the mindfulness and the walking and stuff, but getting the senses more involved has been huge for me. Like,
yeah.
Just in terms of, you're eating food that you really like. It's like stopping and actually just actually just being focused on, I'm enjoying this food and it tastes really good, rather than like,
what's that for you?
Shoveling food in while you're like scrolling Instagram, whatever. Right?
Yeah.
It's literally everything, like everything I eat. Like that's me. Like this is what I'm talking about with like the gratitude kind of, to get a little bit like technical terms, and your reticular activating system is this thing in your brain that like decides what you notice.
Okay.
So like it's the thing I said before, like you buy a red, Toyota Yaris, and then now you see them everywhere. That's your brain has like said, oh, this is kind of relevant, so I noticed them more. They were always there.
Yeah.
There aren't more Toyota Yaris's on the road now. You're just noticing them more.
Yeah.
Because it's like your brain kind of thinks it's
interesting.
Important, right? So gratitude's the same thing. The more that you consciously like write it down, because writing stuff, the technical skills or the motor skills of like writing makes it sink into your brain better.
Yeah.
But to kind of talk through how we get more out of the gratitude practice, you write down all of the things that went well today, even if it was like what's the word? Like minuscule things that you wouldn't think people would be grateful for. But the more the better.
Yeah.
You write them down, but you need to actually stop and feel that kind of like emotion in your body. So it's not just like, oh yeah, cool. Like I'm thankful for family. I'm thankful to have a job. I'm thankful to have like a roof over my head.
Yeah.
Like it's actually stopping and like feeling like, okay, that stuff's actually pretty important.
Yeah.
Like, and feeling it. And
you shouldn't have to you shouldn't have to write down like family.
No, but like
I understand what you're saying. It's like, you shouldn't have to like write down family. Like it's for stuff that like.
Exactly right. Yeah. Because otherwise you'd just be writing family every single day. Right.
Yeah.
Like and that's where you can write down stuff that is a constant, you know, it's family, it's a roof over your head, it's your job, it's whatever.
Yeah.
But ideally it's also, in addition to that stuff, it's also, exactly as you're saying, like unique to today. So that today is actually, significant to another day, for example. And that was sort of something I became like really obsessed with, was kind of, it's what's part of what's driving my journaling, was sort of going like, a really meaningful life is just built up of like millions of meaningful moments. So I'm going to document all of them.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm like, every red tree that I drive past, I like autumn. I'm like, grass.
I like that tree.
Yeah, seriously. I did that today. Like I'm driving along and I'm just like, awesome.
Yeah.
Like, and I will write that in my thing later today. Like I saw a whole heap of trees and I was really happy about it.
Yeah.
And I'm happy about the fact that I was happy about it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely. Well, I mean, the thing is, like, what makes you happy, like, that's what makes you happy. Like, anyone else's happiness has no sort of bearing on that.
They can find kind of, they can just rely on, their thing. Like no matter what's going on, what are sort of the tools in your toolbox that you can just rely upon to kind of, what's the word? Like raise your mood, or like just to feel like, today was a good day, no matter what's going on. And the thing I've found is that when you do the journaling, like you can get to the end of a day that, and maybe not so much anymore because doing it has taught me to be more grateful for the stuff in the moment. But you can get to the end of the day and think like, oh yeah, like not much happened today. And then you start writing stuff down. You're like, oh, I forgot that thing that happened. I forgot this cool thing that happened. I mean, like a lot of the time there will be pretty cool stuff that you kind of, if you hadn't actually written it down and stopped and thought like, oh, what happened today that was good? You might have honestly just completely forgotten about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we're just kind of like layering on stuff that we're grateful for, and all of a sudden you've done it 7 days in a row and you look back and there's all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's like just the little things. And so I became obsessed with like, well, while I'm still figuring out career, business, life, purpose, more bigger
goals,
grander stuff.
Bigger stuff.
I became obsessed with being. This is another thing we talk about is like identity is so important for like changing our behaviors. You know what I mean? Like we need to kind of identify as the person who does these things, and it being part of who we are. And so I was really obsessed with like, I'm going to be the guy who can find like happiness, can find joy, can find things to be grateful for when it feels like nothing's going right.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like I haven't had any success today with work, with my health, like my training's, not going well because I'm just so stressed and burnt out and whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I'm feeling a bit isolated because that was like the mistake I made was I had a tendency to just kind of withdraw and isolate and make my own problems worse, right? So it was this thing of like, okay, well, if I feel like so little is going well, kind of like as what you might typically say, like in terms of work or typical successes, like I'm going to find my own version. I'm going to redefine my own definition of success, which is being the person who can like take this period that's really really difficult, and I'm going to learn how to be super grateful for like every little thing. So like as kind of to keep you going through those periods, but equally I'm going to be the guy who can learn from this.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm going to take the toughest couple of years of my life and I'm going to learn fucking relentlessly about mental health, about psychology, about behavior, about burnout, about values, motivation, stress management, like how it all fits together, everything I could possibly absorb.
Yeah.
So that I'm going to be that guy who took this period of time and actually learnt from it instead of just bitching for 2 years.
You're an ambitious guy.
And that was part of the problem for a long time, is that I was so ambitious and the gap between who I knew I could be and who I was being was so enormous that in itself was
was weighing you down.
Yeah, exactly right.
But that also can be a good thing.
In some ways, yeah. For sure.
And, you've got, we were talking before that you've got a lot that you want to do and sort of basically like what's next for you. So just give us a rundown on sort of, what you're sort of working towards and what you want to sort of take next with this sort of, different career path that you've taken.
Absolutely. So I've got a couple of big things kind of going on all at once at the minute. I'm in the process of developing my first online course, just covering basically all things training, trying to create a resource for people who are sort of basically completely new or fairly inexperienced with the gym and teach them how to actually get the most out of it, because there just isn't enough education. And there are a lot of PTs who aren't interested in education either, so they're not even educating the clients anyway. But so it's like it's education for fitness, but what I want to expand that into is a much broader, probably a membership site that has effectively everything I think, or every piece of education I think people should possess around better managing their physical and mental health. So it's like it's training, it's nutrition, it's understanding motivation and kind of how do you be more consistent with it. Motivation's a tricky term, but I don't necessarily mean the feeling of like being inspired and motivated. I just mean the thing that gets you to do it. Like motivation is a broader term, but it's like it's mental health management, it's stress management. Basically all of the tools I sort of collected to go from being in the worst headspace I've ever been to now being in far and away the best headspace I've ever been, like better than anything I'd ever experienced prior to 2018 is where I'm at now, but only because of the tools and the understanding of myself that I gathered from the last couple of years. So wanting to help other people with that, it's kind of like a broad all-in-one wellness course, I suppose, membership site. Those would probably be the main topics kind of covered there. But then, and also wanting to start a podcast in the not too distant future, basically sharing the same kind of stuff with mate Joel, who worked at Jets back in the day, because he's huge on this stuff as well. His work is more with youth kind of athletes and stuff, but he's huge on the headspace stuff as well. Yeah. And so when we get together, we go for a walk probably once a week or fortnight, and we just chat like this for like hours. It's awesome. So podcast with him, membership courses, kind of website, are probably the main two. And then to throw another one in the works, I've actually just accepted a job working at Mount Hotham for the winter, starting at the end of June.
Here we go.
Because it's just something I've always wanted to do. It's just to really, I like if I want to be someone who can help other people better manage their physical and mental health, but then basically live a more fulfilling life in the process, because as I've sort of spoken about, what I identified was that most of my struggles were stemming from things missing in my life that are just general stuff that more people need. So it wasn't necessarily, like a lifelong struggle with anxiety. It was that I was highly anxious about my circumstances. So I think for a lot of people, reducing their anxiety would just or at least their stress, let's say, would just come down to actually like working a job that they like, and like that, lights them up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, which is hard. Like a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah, they haven't ever been given any of the tools that might help them figure out what would be meaning. So yeah, that's the idea. Just give people some of the tools that helped me figure out, regain my sense of purpose and stuff, and hopefully maybe find out what theirs is, or at least give them some sort of direction with that. But I spoke about the Hoffman thing. It's a unique and different life experience that I think will be valuable for my own personal growth. It's just something I've always wanted to do. I love skiing. Skiing is like my favourite thing in the whole world.
Yeah.
So, it's an opportunity to do more of that and meet a whole bunch of different people and do something quite different. So I got a bit going on. It's like get a course released by end of May, early June.
Yeah.
And then, because what I can then do is a lot of the stuff I'll be creating after that I can just make from my laptop.
Yeah.
Filming videos and making stuff with the laptop. So I can do that while I'm up there. Maybe even podcast while we're up there. And otherwise just do some skiing.
Mate, it sounds good. And sometimes having so much on is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, especially if it is, it's stuff that you're passionate about, which you clearly are. So, that was incredible. Like, I absolutely loved hearing about, how you've been able to shape your personal experiences to, not only, try and find a way, to prevent it or, maybe just help yourself not get back to that place. But, you're sort of just adding more strings to your bow, which I think a lot of people don't necessarily do. I'm probably guilty of that as well. But yeah, it was incredibly interesting and engaging. As I said, your incredible Instagram account with incredible content. So give your username a plug here, and hopefully we'll get you some new followers.
At Thomas_Flynn_. Just nice and simple. So
easy.
Just trying to I became upset, sort of have a chip on my shoulder about the fact that I had to go through a really rough period and then seek out all of this information.
Yeah. That
I think should have been taught to me a long time ago. Do you know what I mean?
That's it.
And so I'm trying to just create my own sort of, obviously with Instagram, but then also with the courses and stuff, trying to give that to other people. So hopefully they don't end up where I did, because that sucked.
Yeah.
And, yeah. I mean, it was a valuable experience because learned and grew from it and all that kind of stuff. But if I can stop one person from ending up there, then
your job's done.
Fine, right? Yeah, that's it.
That's it. Yeah. Perfect. Thanks very much, mate.
Thanks for having me on, Chris. We really appreciate it, mate.